What is up, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, so you guys know what that means. Another edition of the Buffalo Blitz right here on the Built in Buffalo Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter network. And as always, the Built in Buffalo Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to listen to this. As of course, when I started talking, Lance decided to play a video out of his phone just because.
The video,
why not, right, Lance?
our own video just was playing our video.
You know what you are. You know what, you're supporting us, so it's a good thing. Imagine you were playing a different show right now.
Been bad.
It would have been bad, man. I probably would have told you to leave, and you probably been fired from Buffalo. And I don't know what will happen next, but
I would have fired myself.
You would have fired yourself. How are we doing, Lance?
Doing good, doing good. Again, another week we get to come back here after a win. So again, that's much nicer than what it had been earlier in the season when we did have our struggles. Although this past game, there were plenty of struggles, and we'll get into that. Let's tell you a little bit about our sponsor today, Underdog Fantasy. As always, go out there and use promo code Blitz when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy. You'll get your first deposit matched up to 100%, up to $100, excuse me. And Underdog Fantasy has all the sports you could want, college, pro, soccer, everything. So you can play a lot of different ways, best ball drafts, daily drafts, or their pick'em game, which is one of a kind, great stats, props. You get to higher or lower than a number of fantasy points someone's going to get in that game, something like that. So go out, sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code Blitz. That would be amazing. Well,
yeah. No, Lance, you hit it nail on the head right there. We were struggling early on. We were 6-6, and I think you were more optimistic than I was at the 6-6 juncture. But look, the Bills are sitting at 10-6, and if you guys are on YouTube, you're on Facebook, drop a comment. Super chats are open. We're gonna try to get to some comments, but Lance and I have a ton to talk about because there is a lot going on for the Bills. Obviously, I was at the game with Lance. Not with Lance. I was at the pregame tailgate game day hospitality with Lance, which was awesome. Appreciate everyone there. Appreciate Lance hooking me up there. I was there with my family, and then I was
at the game day hospitality. Best tailgate on game days that you can go to. They're actually going to be down in Miami, so check them out if you're going to the game to Miami and check out game day hospitality.
Cool. And then obviously I was at the game, so we're gonna talk about the game, then we're going to do a little in-depth on the Bills playoff scenarios. I'm assuming if you're on Twitter, social media, you've probably seen 80,000 different people tweet the same exact thing because that's what people are doing now these days. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to preview the Bills-Miami matchup. And obviously we'll tell you the playoff scenarios, who to root for, because Saturday is also very important for the Bills as well, outside of the Bills controlling their destiny. But Lance, let's get to it. The Bills 27, the Patriots 21. The Bills moving to 10-6 on the season. Patriots falling to 4-12. It felt like your old school kind of AFC East matchup when these teams really know each other, and it's always closer than I guess Vegas thinks, because Vegas had it at 14, or what I guess you and I thought, or just the general public thought. So Lance, one thing that kind of sparks your mind, because we're going to get to the offense in a second, we're going to get to the defense in a second. I know those are two broad topics, but anything that sparks your mind?
Yeah. Again, starting slow for the Bills. They give up the opening kickoff return for a touchdown, and then the offense goes out and punts on their first offensive possession. So, another instance of that. We've been talking about it all year long. Been one of the things that, I've kind of emphasized that the Bills certainly need to stop doing, and now is the time to really have that stop, because from here on out it's win or go home, really. And we'll talk about the playoff scenarios in a little bit, but when you boil it down, really for the next 3 or 4 weeks, however long the season lasts, it's going to be win or go home, and you definitely need to start the game on a good note and not get behind early.
When the Bills were sitting at 6-6, 7-6, around that mark of the season, obviously post Philly loss, heading into Kansas City, post Kansas City loss, facing Dallas, all that kind of stuff. A lot of Bills players, and you and I talked about it. It's kind of like it was kind of the playoffs for the Bills. It's been the playoffs for the Bills for the last month and a half, just because of where they put themselves early in the year with losses to the Jets, to the Patriots, to the Broncos. They just put themselves in a situation where they had to win a lot of games down the stretch, which they've been in years past, but they also haven't been as well, depending on the year. But so I wanted to mention that. But you also said starting slow. I want to mention something because we're not going to talk about the special teams. I think the special teams has been very, very inconsistent this year, right? Like there's been some very good. I thought Sam Martin had probably his best game he's had in a while because I think he's been very up and down. A couple pins, especially at the end after the Bills' offense stalled out at midfield, and they pinned them down at the end for the Patriots trying to get a game-winning drive. And I think that really factored into the Patriots' offense. And obviously the Bills got the ball back and ran out the clock. So shout out to Sam Martin. But you also had and we saw this with the Chargers, right? When you play teams that are lesser than you, when you play a team that's basically playing for just pride at this point of the season, and that's what the Patriots were on Sunday, you can't give them points. Like the Bills gave the Chargers 13 free points off turnovers a week ago, and that kept the Chargers in the game. That's why the game was so close. The Bills only gave up 2 offensive touchdowns, but the Patriots had 21 because they gave up a special teams kick return for a touchdown. Like those are the things you can't do against teams that are way lesser than you, bad teams. The one thing now, I guess, going for the Bills, every team they play from Miami, if they make the playoffs, even if it's a 10-7 Colts team or a 10-7 Houston team or a Pittsburgh team that we don't think great, they're all going to be double-digit wins teams. So they're all pretty good teams, right? Like you're not going to have that where you're giving away, obviously, points to teams that are less than you. I get it. Like if they played Pittsburgh, the Bills are better than Pittsburgh. The Bills are better than the Colts. But it's just, I think it's different. But I would say the special teams has been very hit or miss. I'm not going to go on a tirade and call for Matthew Smiley's job at the moment because it doesn't do anybody any justice on January 2nd because he ain't going anywhere. He's not like he's leaving. That's kind of an offseason talking point for Lance and I. Mm-hmm. But I just think the special teams probably needs to be a little more crisper. We saw Deontay Hardy against the Chargers fumble. I just think it's been a little up and down. And look, it could cost you. It could cost you. It could cost you big time against Miami or into the playoffs. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention on that. Let's get to Happy New Year, Jim. Hopefully everyone had a happy New Year. Hopefully 2024 is great for everybody. Hopefully 2024 is great for the Bills. Lance, let's talk about this, right? Because when the Bills fired Ken Dorsey in the middle of the year, the offense kind of picked up steam a little, right? Like you had the Philly performance. Was Philly's first performance? Yeah, Philly was the first performance. No.
The Jets or
thank you.
Yeah, the Jets were right after the Broncos.
The Jets. There was a Jets. Sorry, I knew I was missing a game. The Jets were his first performance. The Bills put off an offensive showcase. Then you had Philly, yes, and he put off another offensive performance. Obviously, the Bills didn't win that game, but the offense I thought was very good. And then after that, you had an up and down Kansas City Chiefs performance. You had a very interesting Dallas performance. The offense was really good with 31 points. Passing game wasn't great. Doesn't matter if you score 31 points, right? Like I'll take 31 points. Then you had the up and down Chargers performance, and then obviously the very up and down Patriots performance. Lance, heading into Miami where we think the Bills are going to have to score points well into the 20s, most likely to win this game. Where do you see this offense at the moment, or just the struggles or the up and down or the inconsistencies?
Yeah, I'm kind of listening to a lot of different people out there. And one of the things I heard today on One Bills Live with Dan Orlovsky, he said the Bills gained 10 yards on 9 plays where they were pressured, where Josh was pressured, and he just didn't have his composure in his normal game. He had a bad game, one of his worst games of the year. Not the worst game of the year, probably, but one of his worst games of the year. He did throw one interception that was just kind of a throw it up for grabs type of ball, which obviously
safety.
People are kind of getting probably numb to it at this point, but it's one of those things. I wasn't really worried about the interception. It seemed like he was a little bit careless with the ball at time. He got into a couple of those things where he could have pitched it much earlier to Shakir, and he waited till he was wrapped up, and they almost could have called him forward progress stop, but they didn't, and they ended up getting some yards out of that, which was nice. But it didn't seem like he was settled. It didn't seem like he had any patience and was able to kind of he obviously stuck some throws in there, but if you look at, he's like a 50% completion rate, 15 for 30.
Yeah, 50%.
Just
Yeah.
it's just it was a bad game, and those are going to happen. So I mean, I think that was this game. The offense this game didn't go because they were off. When Allen did hit some guys, the guys couldn't secure the catch. When Allen should have or could have maybe hit some guys in different plays, he either chose to tuck it and run. He had 11 rushes in this game for 44 yards. So it um, just wasn't a good game. I think that this is going to happen from time to time. I think it's more of an anomaly. The Patriots aren't the greatest defense out there, but they do have some size up front and were able to just make Josh uncomfortable, and he didn't play well. And that's kind of what Dan Orlovsky said on One Bills Live, was that same thing, and that people aren't necessarily going to like to hear it, but it's just these guys are human too. They're not going to have great games
Mhm.
every single week. And I think this week specifically, I chalk it up more to this. Hey, they just didn't play well out there. And specifically Josh Allen just didn't have a great performance. And
Mhm.
there's not really much else to say for me about what the offense did or didn't do. It just, they didn't necessarily execute. They had chances and opportunities. You watch the film, guys were open at different times and either, you know, didn't get the read, didn't make the throw, or tucked and run and didn't get as much yardage as they maybe
Mhm.
could have. I think it's just overall, um, they're going to watch the film and see that there was a lot of things they could have done better in this game. When you have 20 points off of 4 turnovers in the first half, leaves a lot to be desired. Um, Better than nothing. You get a pick six in there, so the offense really only contributed 13 points to that, and then you get one touchdown off the opening kickoff in the second half, and after that, it's just all pedestrian for the remainder of the game. Just again, not a great game for any one player on the offense, and that's this game more specifically. I think is an anomaly, or chalk it up to more of the bad game than anything necessarily wrong with the offense.
Yeah, look, I think your assessment was pretty spot on there, Lance. I thought early on, I thought the offensive line kind of got bullied a little bit, and
Sure, yeah,
McDermott did say that. I think he said they responded well, and I do think from start to finish the offensive line got better, but I do think the early couple possessions for the Bills on offense, I think the lack of offensive line play and the pass rush that the Patriots were bringing to Allen, I think it made him unsettled, right? Like I think he wasn't comfortable, and I think that lasted the full 60 minutes, even though I thought the offensive line got better. They got pretty solid PFF grades, pass block. I just think the beginning of the game, the Bills' offensive line kind of had some early struggles, right? Like, and we haven't seen this a ton this year. And then Allen wasn't settled, right? Like, he just clearly was not himself. He was missing some open guys. Look, he was missing some open guys. Some guys got to make some catches. Like Trent Sherfield has to make some catches. Like if you are going to be on the field, you got to make some plays, man. Latavius Murray dropped an easy first down. Like
yeah,
that is stuff, and I get it. It's football, but when your quarterback's struggling and you have a 3rd and short and he throws a dump off for a first down, you have to make the catch. Like that is just stuff that is gonna lose. It's gonna lose you a game like Miami. It stuff like that loses you football games. So you have to make plays. So I thought the receivers weren't great. I think Kincaid dropped another ball once. Like I think the receivers as a whole weren't great, and we can see the Bills. I think the Bills are starting to have a bit of a wide receiver issue, just as a whole. And we've been clamoring. Like if you guys watched the college football playoff last night, like Romeo Odunzu, because I tweeted about it. I don't look. He's not going to get to the Bills if the Bills are picking anywhere in the 20s. I just don't think so. But like he's the type of guy that I think would fit perfectly on this offense, right? A guy that can stretch the field, that also a crisp route runner. But like, and I'm gonna get to a draft talk here. But like the Bills are gonna add a receiver in the draft, and we've been clamoring for it. But with the current structure of this team, I think we need our receivers to get separation. They weren't. Like it was not a great overall day from Gabe Davis because He had another one of his only 2 catches for 21 yards. Diggs, 4 catches for 26 yards. Dalton Kincaid was your best receiver. I thought Shakir, they probably should have used him more. I think Diggs being on the field for 60% of the time is a problem. Like, I think we have an issue right there with that because Diggs is really good and he just hasn't been a focal point of this offense. And I tweeted about it starting to become a red flag because it is. Because Sunday's game, Lance, when Allen was struggling, when some other receivers weren't catching the ball, is a game where you force feed Diggs.
Yeah.
Right? Like you and I have talked about it's, and Bills fans in general have talked about it. Like sometimes you don't want to be force feeding Diggs, right? Like sometimes that's not what the offense wants because it turns to turnovers. It turns to Allen making bad decisions. It turns to a one-dimensional offense, right?
Yeah.
But I think we might have to go a little bit back towards that just because of the lack of play around him, right? Like he was struggling. He was 15 for 30. I didn't see enough targets towards Diggs. I didn't see enough plays towards Diggs. And I'm going to give credit to New England. They did a good job defensively in the secondary. But I just thought overall the Bills just didn't have a crisp passing game. I thought the receivers struggled with separation. I thought they didn't force feed Diggs enough, in my opinion, right? Like I think that's one of those type of things where you kind of have to. And he had the best PFF grade, 73.1. Not a great overall PFF grades for the offense as a whole, which makes sense. I just don't know where this offense goes with the weapons they have currently, right? Like I thought the deep ball to Kincaid was great. I want to see more of that, and I like getting Kincaid involved. But I think it's time where Allen and Diggs have to be a little selfish, right?
Yeah.
Like Diggs needs to be on the field for more snaps, and 60% is unacceptable in my opinion, unless he's dealing with an injury that the team won't disclose to us. But if he's not, that's unacceptable. He needs to be 80+% of the snaps because he's that good, and I think you have to force feed him a little more.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen the injury report come out yet for this week, so it's possible he lands on it.
True.
We don't know. People can get nicked up during the game and just need a breather. Maybe he just needs, a few more plays off, and then he can work through it. Maybe gets a Charlie horse or something, or a cramp or whatever, needs to hydrate, whatever it may be. You got to work through those things and then come back in the game. So, whether or not he had any of that stuff during this game, we don't know. They haven't said, and they have every right to say, keep it close to the chest if they don't want to disclose that.
If they don't have to, why
They
would they?
didn't have any sort of significant responses when asked by the media yesterday, and some people took exception to that, and people thought they should have had more time to ask more questions about the same situation. And I just like, dude, what are you going to get out of asking the same question 50 different ways? They're not going to say anything different. So,
I'm not going to comment
I
on
think that for Diggs, he's had double-digit targets in 8 of the 16 games they've played, right? And I guess 6 of the last 8 have been less than double digits, and maybe that's the concern because 6 of the first 8 were double digits in targets. So, the production isn't there, but I think, people, are going to put more focus on Diggs at this point in the season, and it may be harder. Part of the lack of production is his drop rates went up. I think that we've talked about the swing pass kind of thing, or that screen pass they try to do to him.
I can't do that
And
anymore, man. That place
and
stinks.
he hasn't been able to execute it. They handed him the ball,
They did.
in the red zone.
They
They
did.
lined him up in the backfield and they handed it to him. So it's not like they're not trying to get the ball in his hands
No,
by
I
any means.
agree.
So I don't think I don't think that there's anything more to say on the Diggs scenario. I don't think it really is a scenario at all. I think it just, Joe Brady said that's the flow of the game. They called what they called, and the packages he was in, and when he wasn't, he wasn't. So, if you needed a breather here and there, I think that's kind of is what it is. So,
I also want to say one final thing on the offense, Lance, right? Like the Patriots right now currently are the 3rd ranked rush defense in the NFL. So something that the Bills have leaned on the last couple weeks, especially obviously in the Dallas game, as we all know, is James Cook in the running game, right? Like, and that wasn't there on Sunday. Cook 16 carries for 48 yards. That's 3 yards per carry. So New England, and we said this on last week's show when we were previewing it, I think New England was still fighting on defense. I didn't. They were fighting on offense, and we kind of saw that 14 points on offense, 4 turnovers on offense. They weren't really fighting on offense. On defense, I thought New England was still fighting, right? Like their front seven's pretty good. Their secondary's good. They have an overall solid defense, right? Third best rush defense in the National Football League. So I thought the Bills' inability to run the ball, I thought consistently kind of took them off script a bit. And I just think Allen wasn't on his A game, right? Like if Allen's on his A game, you don't need to worry about the run game. But they couldn't when they saw Allen struggling, they couldn't let's go to the run game. Let's kind of lean on the run game like we did in Dallas, right? And that was a different philosophy because they were running 7 yards every time they touched the ball in Dallas. But in this game, they just couldn't they couldn't sustain a running game. Like their average total 3.4 yards per carry. We saw them line up Diggs. Diggs took a carry for 5 yards. They used Ty Johnson a couple times. Allen had 11 runs. Like they were trying on offense, and it just wasn't pretty. It wasn't smooth. I gotta give credit to New England there. Like I think last week I said defensively they're still fighting, and they clearly are still fighting on defense. So
yeah, the running back production just wasn't there, and I think this offense relies on good running back production throughout the few weeks that Joe Brady's been the interim OC. 1 catch on 3 targets for James Cook, and then no other running back had a catch. Latavius Murray, obviously, with that drop, didn't see Ty Johnson get involved a ton in the passing game, and then had 5 carries. But yeah, you got to have production. We did not see the bullies up front that we saw during the Dallas game come out. Christian Barmore is obviously a huge factor for the New England defensive line, and he played a huge factor in what the Bills were and were not able to do in the run game, I think, this week.
Let's flip over to the Buffalo Bills defense, and what a turn of events this Bills defense has had. Obviously, with all the injuries, Trey White, Micah Hyde missing time, Daquan Jones, Matt Milano, and obviously the list goes on for guys that have missed time. AJ Benenza missed a little time. Gregory Rousseau has missed time, right? All of the above. Obviously, Bills got Daquan Jones back on defense this week, which was a huge sigh of relief, obviously, but just a huge addition. And the Bills forced 4 turnovers on defense. Christian Benford had one of the great plays of the day, a strip fumble that kind of just ripped it into his hands. Christian Benford, week in and week out, continues to make plays. Obviously, Rasul Douglas had a nice tip that led to I didn't know Ed Oliver had those hands, and Ed Oliver, great interception. Nice play by Rasul Douglas. Great catch by Ed Oliver. And then obviously 2 more great plays by Rasul Douglas. Had another interception as well, and also a pick 6. So the Bills defense shows up. Corners show up. The pass rush shows up, give a little pressure on the Patriots. Zappe took 3 sacks. The rush defense only gave up 2.8 yards per carry. They didn't do a great job of keeping Zappe in the pocket. He had a good running game, 37 yards and 7.4 carries, but Zeke, 2.8 yards per carry. Lance, I know I just listed some good things about the defense, but how happy were you with the defensive performance on Sunday?
Yeah, really couldn't have been happier. I think obviously whenever you're taking the ball away, helping win in the turnover battle, that's going to lead to the success. You just, again, wish the offense could have done a little bit more than 2 field goals that they got. Obviously, they did convert one into a touchdown, but moving forward, we're going to need more and more to convert these opportunities into touchdowns and not settle for field goals. Greg Rousseau, great game, rushing the passer as well. Just a solid game overall by Greg Rousseau. They're getting guys like Terrell Bernard and Jordan Poyer and Teron Johnson just really well involved in this pass rush and kind of their blitzing techniques here. They've been, running the cross with the with the linebackers, been able to cross them and confuse the offensive lines here the last couple of weeks as well to get some pressure. So McDermott dialing it up, and I think that one of the biggest things, people are so quick to jump on McDermott's case for whatever reason. The Bills fans aren't or some Bills fans just aren't fans of McDermott, but I just think this performance, this type of performance, is exactly why I prefer McDermott to be the coach, because I just don't think there's another coach out there that's going to really allow this defense to perform the way it is right now. And the big need is to get this offense going, and that's going to key in on the offensive coordinator. So defensively, like you mentioned everything you could really say about it, but great pressure and scheme this week from the defense, and it turned out to lead to takeaways, and that's how you win games.
How about Terrell Bernard? Another amazing performance. He's having one of the best years from a middle linebacker we've seen in a while for the Bills. Obviously, there was a ton of questions heading into this year. You and I talked about this a ton over the summer. What do the Bills do at middle linebacker? Is it Terrell Dodson? Is it obviously Dorian Williams? Is it Terrell Bernard? And obviously Dodson's played a ton this year and he's played pretty well just because of the Matt Milano injury. But Bernard, another great performance. He finished the day with another 2 sacks, 10 tackles, tied for first in the team with tackles on Sunday with Jordan Poyer, who also had 10. But Terrell Bernard, 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Another great performance for Terrell Bernard, who keeps making plays and is one of the most valuable players to this team's defense, and something that I never thought I was going to say over the summer or when the Bills drafted him. But shout out to him for, I guess, proving all the doubters and haters wrong, because and you know who you are if you're into listening. This is literally everybody that was on social media bashing the Terrell Bernard pick 2 years ago, and he's completely proved that maybe we should probably trust the GM over us on Twitter.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's kind of why, I try to choose more positivity and optimism with these things, because we don't know how this stuff's going to turn out. Just with Bills fans, it's so easy because of the drought era and things like that to just turn towards negativity and thinking that things aren't going to work out. I get it, totally get it. But, I always like to play the long game and wait and see. But I 100% was on why did we pick Terrell Bernard? It was a wasted pick, and boy, was I wrong. But I'm totally happy to have been wrong. So
I'm totally happy I'm not making the decision. I love the draft, and I think I know somewhat about the draft, but nowhere near, obviously. And obviously, a lot of Bills fans on Twitter think they do know more than the so-called experts, and that gets them in trouble when you go back and look at the receipts, because I know people know who you are when to bash Terrell Bernard, and I obviously wasn't a huge fan of the pick. So I can be honest with you, I was wrong. Lance, I think you just said you were wrong. It's not a bad thing to admit you were wrong if it turns out well for the Bills.
Sure, absolutely.
So yeah, Terrell Bernard keeps proving his performance is great. I think the secondary was great. I thought Hyde and Poyer were pretty good back there. I thought they kind of did their thing. But Rasul Douglas is probably the best in-season acquisition Brandon Beane has made. I don't have another one that really comes to mind that pops like Rasul.
Amazing pickup. I think Rasul Douglas was exactly what the Bills needed. Obviously, with the void that Trey White left being injured, and Rasul Douglas comes in and maybe outperforms what Trey White would have been in that spot even. So just an amazing pickup, and I'm excited to see kind of how he even improve. He's just going to keep getting better and better in this defense as he plays in it. So
you also got to find a way to get him back on this roster next year. Whatever you got to do, he needs to be in the roster next year. And he's actually outperformed Jalen Johnson. And we all were clamoring for Jalen Johnson from Chicago. Obviously, he was a little younger, but I thought Rasul Douglas has been one of the best cornerbacks in football the last month and a half, just because one, Lance, we saw in the Jets game, we saw in a handful of other games, he takes the ball away. Like that was one of his good things he did in Green Bay in his breakout year 2 years ago when he was taking the ball away. And once again, 2 turnovers, right? Like if you're going to do that and you're going to consistently take the ball away and give off the offense, who obviously didn't do a great job of capitalizing on Sunday, the ball, it just helps. And obviously, you know what, Rasul Douglas, I'll take a couple more pick sixes if you want to house it a couple more times. I'm not gonna complain if you do that, but I think he's probably been Brandon Beane's best in-season pick. I don't think another one even comes close.
Yeah, hands down.
Okay. Ooh, Matt Holman's coming in. Or Rasul Douglas, Benford, Taron Johnson, the best cornerback trio in the NFL? I have no idea.
They're probably close, but
the problem is like I can't name like 3. I can name corners. I'm not saying I don't know corners. It's just like trying to figure out who's a trio.
I don't know a team's nickel corner as well as I know ours. Obviously, we have the best nickel corner in the league.
Exactly.
And then Rasul Douglas performing as one of the best outside corners. Benford's been very good as well. So I think that They got to be in the top 3.
The Jets are up there.
Trio there.
Sauce Garner, DJ Reed.
Yeah.
Jets,
I mean,
very good
performance-wise, I just name-wise,
49ers.
you're going to find better. But, yeah, performance-wise, I think they're top 3.
Look, right now, according to PFF, the Bills are 4th in coverage. So, I don't know what that does you. The Jets are 1, the Ravens are 2, 49ers are 3, the Bills are 4. So, they're top 5 in coverage according to PFF. That's all that matters. So, they're definitely in the top echelon of the league when it comes to cornerback play. And look, Lance, if you and I were talking on January 2nd, 2024, 2 years ago, and our 2 best corners would be Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, I would have probably said, you're crazy. And I also asked, who the heck is Christian Benford? Because I'd never heard of him 2 years ago. I knew Rasul Douglas was 2 years ago, but if you're like, Peter, Christian Benford, and Rasul Douglas are going to be part of a top 5 secondary corner PFF, and the Bills, helping the Bills obviously get to where they want to at the moment, I would have been like, Lance, you probably should stop talking. And I also asked, obviously, who the heck is Christian Benford? Because I didn't know about him 2 years ago. So it's funny. It's fun. Look, both Christian Benford pick was great. Obviously, the Rasul Douglas trade was great. Taron Johnson's been great for years. And obviously, they have Dane Jackson stashed back there as well, who's 100% a very good third corner or a third boundary corner for the Bills. So, and they also have Kyer Elam.
Yeah.
So
no, they have plenty of guys.
They got corners
out there. And,
but it also
yeah,
we'll get to this next. I know we're ready for scenarios. We'll get to this obviously in the offseason with the Trey White. If they bring back Russell Douglas with Benford, and obviously what they do with Trey White will be a fascinating and also maybe a little bit of a sad conversation we could have in the offseason. Let's hope we don't have to start talking about that until February. But Lance, playoff scenarios. Let's get cooking, man.
Yeah, obviously, the biggest thing is, hey, we win this game against Miami, and the Bills are the number 2 seed. There's not really much else out there for that. You win, and you're the 2 seed. And
I like that.
all the season, the whole all the roller coaster ride of the season, all the ups and downs, and here you are going into the playoffs as the 2 seed. I think would bode very well for Buffalo. It paves the road. I mean, there's just teams who have had other injuries, major injuries to their quarterbacks and things like that. And the way the chips fell here, everything's right in front of you. So, I mean, going out, winning the game in Miami gives you obviously the best playoff scenario you could have. If they do not win on Sunday, then it gets a little dicey. You need help, and it's not very promising for who you need help from.
Yeah, I know you hate talking about this, but I'll lay out what you need help. So Saturday, like I said in the beginning of the show, is very important. So this is before. So Saturday night, we could be talking about the Bills clinch the playoff spot. That's a realist, not a real. It's a potential option, right? Steelers Ravens is at either 4 or 4:30 on Sunday. If the Ravens win over Pittsburgh, the Bills clinch a playoff spot. And right now, the Ravens are locked into the 1. And there's a lot of people floating on Twitter. Do they play their starters? Obviously, Jim Harbaugh hasn't come out. Not Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh. Sorry, Jim Harbaugh is the Michigan coach. John Harbaugh has not come out and said what are they doing, right? We saw a couple years ago, Lance, when the Ravens rested their starters and then they came out flat against Tennessee in a playoff game and they lost. So I don't know what Baltimore does on Saturday. We'll obviously know as the week goes on, but the Ravens do have to keep in mind if they rest, let's say 95% of the starters, right? Lamar, some of the key defensive players, Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, all those type of players, Lance, it's going to be 2 weeks off for them because they won't play this weekend. Then they have the bye. So we're talking about a Ravens team that will have 2 weeks off. That could be good for guys that have lingering injuries, that are dealing with a foot injury, a neck injury, a shoulder injury, whatever. But guys that are fully healthy at this point, fully healthy of the year, are going to be a little rusty heading into 2 weeks. It's a legit possibility. So, right? So the Ravens, Steelers. So if the Ravens beat the Steelers, the Bills clinch a playoff spot. Another scenario on Sunday, this game is at 1 o'clock. So this game is also before the Bills kick off on Sunday Night Football. Titans, Jaguars. If the Titans beat the Jaguars, the Bills also clinch a playoff spot. So there's 2 different scenarios in this situation, right? We're thinking wild card. I'm thinking division, but I'll lay out the wild card. If both the Ravens and the Titans win their games, Ravens over the Steelers and the Titans win over the Jaguars, the Bills will be the 6th seed. If only one of those 2 happen, the Bills will be a 7 seed. So if only if the Titans win or only if the Ravens win, the Bills will be a 7 seed. Obviously, if both those don't happen and the Bills fail to win Sunday night, the Bills will be sitting at home and Lance and I will be very sad on Tuesday. But obviously, we will know potentially Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, or we will definitely know heading into Sunday Night Football if the Bills have a playoff spot clinched. So that is the scenario they're looking for. They did not get great help from Seattle over the weekend. Seattle beating Pittsburgh would have clinched the Bills a playoff spot. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing that I don't believe we said is the Houston and Indy game. If it ends in a tie, also helps the Bills. I mean, I know it's not likely, but we do have to mention it for the information out there.
Fair.
If
You're right.
the Indy and Houston game does end in a tie, that will definitely bode well for the Bills.
Yeah, so look, obviously Lance and I are obviously everyone's shooting for the division, right? I would like on Saturday night for the Bills to have a playoff spot. And obviously them being either a 6 or 7 seed, having to go to Kansas City or having to go to Miami again is not ideal, right? Like is not an ideal situation. It is more ideal for the Bills to be a 2 seed and hosting Houston or Indy or Pittsburgh, right? Like those are the more ideal situations. But I would like to go to bed Saturday night with the Bills having a playoff spot clinched. That's just my opinion. Not my opinion. Everyone would have agree with that. If you don't agree with that, you're kind of crazy. As a Bills fan, I don't know who wouldn't, but I would. So we're big Ravens fans on Saturday. And then obviously we're big Titans fans on Sunday, and obviously we're even bigger Bills fans on Sunday night. So it's crazy. It's like, and you're like, oh, I can have a nice, enjoyable Saturday. I don't have to worry about any games. Nope. Oh, also Houston and Indy play Saturday night as well. Okay,
That's right.
so we are rooting for. Oh my God, imagine it goes to overtime. Oh my God, Bills Twitter would be.
I'm rooting for the tie.
Lance, if
That's my big root there.
let's
That's
say
my
this,
big. I'm gonna put a bet on that it ends in a tie.
let's say the Steelers beat the Ravens right on Saturday. Steelers are currently like 3-point favorites, and if that Colts Texans game goes to overtime, Bills Twitter is gonna have an absolute like meltdown.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be chaotic. I'm all for the chaotic situation there. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Bills to win Sunday night, so we don't have to deal with this. Okay, you want to talk some Dolphins?
Let's do it.
Let's talk some Dolphins. Lance, this is obviously, guys, Lance and I's first year doing the show together in season. We started in the spring. I think we started, Lance, you and I doing the show. So we have spring to talk about. We had summer, we had the draft. We started doing around the draft time. So we obviously had draft, summer, but this is Lance and I's first full season. So I just want to say quickly, thank you to everyone that listened to Lance and I in 2023. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, all the audio platforms, we really appreciate it. I should have mentioned this earlier in the show. Obviously, it's 2024, so we appreciate everyone that tunes in every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, takes an hour out of their evening, out of their time with their family, with their kids, or whatever you guys are doing. And you guys do great numbers on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter for us. So we really appreciate it. I know Lance appreciates it, and I appreciate it. And everyone that's in the comment section. I know we always don't get to everybody in the comment section. And I see Roy and Izzy are getting me on my math. It's actually 3 weeks. I'm with you because I forgot this week exists. But yes, we appreciate everyone that listens to this show, and hopefully you guys continue listening into 2024. Okay, I feel like I forgot to say that, Lance, and that just came to my mind. And Izzy's right. That's 3 weeks of rest, way too long. Play a half. Izzy's clamoring for the Ravens to play a half. We'll see what they do on Saturday. And Rory also brought it up before. It's 3 weeks, so I didn't count this week. Lance, it is time to get to Dolphins. Bills versus Dolphins for the AFC East on Sunday Night Football. What else could you have asked for besides, I guess, an undefeated season? I don't know. Or maybe them beating Denver. But Bills, Dolphins, Lance, what are we looking for in this game?
Yeah, before we go there, real quick, it is plus 5,000 to bet the tie on Indy and Houston.
You're going to do it, aren't you?
If you go that route, throw a little cash on that tie there. You don't want to jinx it too much, but sprinkle it in. Plus 5,000 odds, why not? So, Bills and Dolphins. Yes, sorry, I had to look that up. Obviously, we mentioned how Josh Allen had a bad game this past week against New England. It was kind of one of those weeks where we thought, all right, Josh Allen comes out. could really cement himself as a league MVP candidate and those kind of things. And obviously, it didn't work out that way. But the Bills still got a victory regardless. This week, can't have that. Have to have Josh taking what the defense gives him. You would assume the Dolphins are going to probably try to play a shell and rush. They don't have too many pass rushers left anymore. Their two of their top pass rushers are down and gone for the season. But they're going to rush 3 or 4 guys and probably drop into coverage and try to take that passing game away. So big thing is taking what the defense gives you, and then we have to see the Bills' offensive line open some run lanes here this game. We have to have James Cook being more effective this week and really being able to run the ball effectively. If the Bills can run the ball effectively this week,
Mm-hmm.
it just opens up the entire game and allows this offense to operate at full capacity.
Yeah, the Dolphins are dealing with a lot of injuries right now, Lance. They're dealing with Jalen Waddle, their second best receiver, most likely won't play in this week's game. Xavier Howard, their second best cornerback, won't play. Jalen Phillips has been out for the year for a couple weeks, and then Bradley Chubb. And look, we never root for this. Obviously, Bradley Chubb with a torn ACL with 3 minutes left in that blowout loss against Baltimore. I put it out on Twitter, and I just put like an unbiased post. I was like, this is just an absolute coaching blunder by Miami that Jalen Phillips is already out for the year. You need edge rushers. You're down more than double digits with 3 minutes left in the game, and he's still on the field. That's an absolute mismanagement by Mike McDaniels and Vic Fangio. So they're dealing with Jalen Phillips. Connor Williams, one of their best O-linemen's, been out for a while. I think he's out for the year. He is out for the year. So they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Xavier Howard, right? Like Xavier Howard, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. They're two best pass rushers. Lance, the Bills have to find a way. I agree with you. Run the ball, right? Like if they can run the ball, control the clock, stay away from Miami's quick strike offense. And look, Miami struggled against Baltimore, but they didn't struggle on the ground. Devin Achane, who's having one of the best rookie years when he is healthy, obviously Raheem Mostert did not play, had 14 carries for 107 yards, which is a 7.6 clip. You got to slow down that, right? Like even with that, Miami struggled because Tua struggled without Jalen Waddle. I think this offense is very different where when they don't have their two speed stars, when obviously Tyreek Hill by himself is great because he's Tyreek Hill, but
he's banged up too.
He's banged up, and the Bills' defense can scheme a lot better when you don't have to deal with two speedsters. When you have one speedster, you can defend that, and you'll live with Durham Smythe and Cedric Wilson Jr. and Braxton Berrios beating you, right? If those guys go off, Miami deserves to win the game, right? If that happens, that happens. The Bills limit Tyreek Hill, limit the deep balls, no quick strikes, make Miami grind you out. Make Miami play a tough game. Miami's not physical. They're not built. A lot of the physical players are not playing. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. They're hurt in the secondary. I don't know if Miami's that type of grinded out team. Like you have to run the ball. Like Baltimore threw the ball 21 times. Obviously Lamar was 18 for 21 with 5 touchdowns. So this doesn't have to be a 45, 40 pass attempt day for Josh Allen. I just think if he's efficient, I think if he gets the ball out quick, finds his receivers, and the Bills can lean on their run game. Baltimore, obviously, they have Lamar running, but average 5 yards a clip on the ground. I think if the Bills lean on their run game, Allen just kind of takes what the defense gives him, becomes efficient. I don't know if Miami has right now, which is weird, the firepower on offense to keep up. Like I don't. Without Jalen Waddle, they're banged up on the pass rush. I do think Allen's going to have time to throw the ball more than he did in New England. They're banged up in the secondary, right? Like Miami's coming in really banged up. The Bills, I know it wasn't a great performance on Sunday, are coming in with 4 straight wins. They feeling themselves. They know what is at stake. This game favors Buffalo at the moment right now.
Right. Yeah, and I think they have to stay within themselves. And I'm more worried about the defensive players here when I say let's not let the emotions get the best of us here. When you're as the Buffalo Bills, you really need to stay within the game, stay within yourself, and do not let emotions cause game-altering penalties. I saw a comment there where if the Bills just play the Dolphins and not the Dolphins and the refs, but the Bills can help themselves with that a little bit too. They cannot let emotions run too high and get themselves into too many penalty situations that take them either out of position on offense or at a disadvantage on defense. So you really need to stay disciplined and make sure to limit shooting yourself in the foot and getting untimely penalties.
Yeah, you can't shoot yourselves in the foot. You can't turn the ball over if you're Buffalo on offense, like Baltimore. I don't know if they had a turnover. I don't remember. No, they did. They had one turnover. Gus Edwards had a fumble loss, but Lamar didn't turn the ball over. No interceptions. Was only sacked once. Like, I don't know if Miami has the firepower on the edge, but look, they still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Devin Achane. Both guys can take it to the house at any moment. And if Tua kind of plays within himself, and Tua did not have a good game against Baltimore, it's obviously in the cards for Miami. Look, the knock on Miami is they don't play well against above 500 teams, or they don't play well against really good teams. Their best win this year is Dallas, and Dallas is very up and down. And Dallas at home, you and I, when we previewed this game, Dallas on the road is totally different. Dallas on the road looks like you and I playing out there. Dallas at home looks like the Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Dallas Cowboys, right? Like that type of team. So Miami obviously got them at home, and they beat them, and obviously that game was close. So this game's in Miami. It's not a. It's. I think the weather's going to be okay. This game.
No weather concerns. The Bills are 3-4 on the road, so they've kind of split.
Not great.
They have a chance to make that 4-4 and make it a true split. But the Dolphins are 7-1 at home, so very much. But the Bills right now favored in the spread -3. It's
started
very
at 1,
but I think it's because, again, like you mentioned, just Miami missing so many pieces.
They have a lot of injuries.
Mostert might play, might not. There's belief that I've read and heard that Mostert could play this week, so he's not out of the picture by any means. But Waddle, obviously, probably not. I think Xavier Howard, probably
he's week to week. Anytime they say they're week to week, they don't play the first week.
Yep. So, those guys are big. But they have, like you said, they have Achane and they have Hill still. So there's definitely reason to believe that Miami could move the ball, and if the Bills don't stay disciplined and don't maintain their integrity on defense, that's one of the other notes I had on the keys to this game, is just maintaining the integrity and discipline that it requires to play in the Sean McDermott scheme. These guys have to remain vigilant and keep after the attack that they're providing, that McDermott's laying out in his game plan. So I really think that it really is more play within yourself. The whole team, if they just kind of play within the system and don't get too excited in the moment to try to make too big of a play, it all could turn out very well for the Bills. And that's what they've done well for most of the year. And most of this stretch run here is just kind of play within themselves and do what they're being asked as the individual, and that creates a greater team good.
Yeah, Roy just struck my point right there. Of course, thanks, Roy. Joking. Look, with Jalen Ramsey being on one side of the field, and Jalen Ramsey's tend to stick on one side of the field. That's what he started to do towards the end of his career, or the latter part of his career. Xavier Howard being out, it's going to be Eli Apple or Kaderi Kahu. And we all remember Kaderi Kahu. I'm so butchering his name right now. He's the guy that missed the tackle on Diggs, and they obviously got torched by Diggs early in the year. But we also remember Eli Apple, right? Like, Eli Apple has had some interesting back and forth with the Bills. He has had some interesting back and forth with multiple teams, including the Chiefs and some other said teams. So that matchup, Lance, favors the Bills. Is it Diggs when they shift Diggs to the other side? Is it Gabe Davis? Is it Khalil Shakir? Is it Dalton Kincaid? Right? Like, I don't want to be talking on Tuesday night that the Bills' offense didn't flourish, because there is no excuse that this offense can't get by the secondary, right? Like, I think without Xavier Howard, the secondary is reeling, and we saw what they did on early in the year. Obviously, they didn't have Ramsey, but they were still playing Eli Apples and Kaderi Kahu. Like, that's who was playing early in the year, and the Bills absolutely torched Miami for 48 points, right? Like, I don't want to be talking on Tuesday night that this offense didn't shine in the passing game, right? Like, look, I don't want to be talking about a loss, but I can stomach. I'm not going to stomach it, but like, it's a little. If we don't show up through the air, I'm going to be very disappointed. It's going to leave a lot of questions heading into the off season with this receiving core. But this game favors Diggs, it favors Gabe Davis, it favors Kincaid, it favors all the receiving guys, and it favors Josh Allen just because of, I think, the lack of pass rush Miami's currently dealing with and the injuries in the secondary. So I think this game favors the Bills' passing attack a little more than I think maybe I would have thought a couple weeks ago if we were looking at this game.
Yeah, I think Cater Kohu is who you're trying to
Hater,
say,
thank you.
and I think that
Hater.
the Bills they have to come out and be able to throw the ball, but I think the way that happens is through effectively running the ball at first, because the Dolphins are going to drop back and take away the pass to begin the game, and the only way to get them out of that is to start running the ball effectively and make them come up and play more in the box, and then that should open up things, in the secondary. But that's my big key for this game is I'm going to look at the running back or the running game effectiveness and the use of the running backs. Like I mentioned, not a very productive day, especially in the passing game this past week. So look for them to have a bigger role and a bigger day in Miami. The biggest thing too is, like we mentioned earlier, we got to score touchdowns, especially when you get the ball in the red zone. You got to score 6 points. You cannot score 3 consistently. And if they're able to do that, obviously get to that 30-point mark and above, it's going to bode very well for their success. The biggest thing, one of the bigger things on defense, limit the big play, right? We talked about Devin Achane. He's had a pretty good season so far as a rookie, and he didn't break out too many big plays against the Ravens that cost the Ravens, but he still had a good chunk. 7.4, 7.6 yards a carry there against Baltimore. So limiting the big play, we saw a couple of big plays that New England was able to hit. Allowed them to score. Zappi ran in a 17-yard score after earlier on that drive. I think they had a big run from the younger guy. I think it was 36. I'm not sure his name, but yeah, when the Bills limit the big play, and that probably goes for just about any team, so it's easy to say, but really gonna be able to be a key success for the Bills without having those home runs.
Matt Holman's coming in. Have we seen the last of Von Miller this season? Obviously, Von Miller was a healthy scratch on Sunday. The Bills went with 5 edge rushers: Kingsley Jonathan, Gregory Rousseau, Shaq Lawson, AJ Epinesa, and Leonard Floyd. Yes.
I don't think so.
You go no.
I think that it was a strategic.
You think it was strategic?
To have him left off or to be inactive this past
You know
week
what? You're
against New
right. I
England.
agree.
It's going to be a more physical game against New England. They needed more physical players. They wanted to have guys like Shaq Lawson and Kingsley Jonathan in reserves rather than having Von Miller in reserves. They didn't really need the pass rush to be, or they didn't need as many pass rushers to be in that game. So I think this game goes a little bit differently. I think you need a little bit more pass rush juice out there, and I could see him back in the lineup.
Yeah, you know what? You just changed my answer. I agree. I think it was a different type of game. I would expect him to play on Sunday. I think now, we will see, but he's definitely not in the top tier of the rotation. The 3 guys that should be getting the majority of the snaps is AJ Epinesa, Leonard Floyd, and Greg Rousseau. So those guys need to be getting.
Rousseau and Leonard Floyd have played lights out. Epinesa's had a great year when he was healthy, so I think that's 100% right. As Von continues to work through and progress coming back from that ACL, I think, we're going to see him this week, and I think we're going to see him throughout the playoffs as well.
It feels like so long ago we were talking about Von Miller, when he's going to be healthy and when he's going to be activated. Doesn't it feel like it was 2 years ago now?
Yeah, boy, another thing I think this offseason where I was dead wrong is, saying he might come out and play week 1. I thought he was going to make a great recovery, and he just hasn't. Hasn't looked like himself, hasn't looked like really much of a productive NFL pass rusher at any, or defensive end, at any rate. So I think that definitely leaves a little bit to be disappointed about, but I think as you see him work through his progression and healing, that you hope he starts to gain some of that juice back.
But doesn't it feel like it was like 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Like you and I talked about that over the summer. We talked about it in the beginning of the year. Like, when is Von Miller coming back? And that was such a big July and August conversation during our shows throughout the week. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like forever. Okay, so you talked about keys to the game. I think you got to get after Tua, right? Like, every time we play the Dolphins or every team that plays against Miami, Tua struggles with pressure, right? He's not great with pressure. He hasn't been great over the years, and I think Miami's banged up a little bit on the O-line. Obviously, Connor Williams, their starting center, has been out for a couple weeks. I think Baltimore did a great job of pressure inside and pressure outside. And obviously Baltimore's really good. And I think the Bills can do that, right? Like Terrell Bernard, 2 sacks. They can get it with Rousseau. They can get it with they can get it. So yeah, the Bills' pressure is very good. They can get it with Terrell Bernard. They can get it Rousseau. They can get it with Floyd, AJ Epinesa. But they've also been able to get it up front. I thought Tim Settle had a very good game, even though PFF doesn't say it. I thought Tim Settle, watching in the stands, was very dynamic, wreaked havoc, was in on every play, and obviously Ed Oliver. So the Bills can give 3 different looks when it comes to pass rushing. The Bills have 3 different ways of getting after the quarterback. They can get it through the linebackers with Terrell Bernard, edge rushers with Rousseau, Leonard Floyd, and AJ Epinesa, and then up the middle with Ed Oliver and company. I just don't think we have seen
and
that.
off the edge. We've seen Teron Johnson and others come off the edge.
And
Rizzo
Poyer and
Douglas, I
stuff like
believe,
that.
and these guys, all 4, all 3 levels of the line, the linebackers and the secondary guys are very, very good at blitzing and kind of getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head now with Daquan Jones back in the middle, and then Poona Ford actually played a pretty good role as well next to Tim Settle, I think, this past week. So kind of helps. I think we can really get a nice 4-man rush this week, with our ends and our D tackles. And then if you sprinkle in some pressure there from the second level, it'll definitely increase the pressure on Tua. But I think we're going to have to, and I think we will do a great job of getting pressure with just the defensive line. And that's a big thing about having Daquan Jones back, is if you're not doubling him, then he's going to beat you. And if you are doubling him, then it just leaves Ed Oliver to wreak havoc as well. And then if those guys are taken care of, it's going to be very hard to take care of Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and Leonard Floyd on the outside. So I think that just this lineup now with Daquan Jones returning is just giving the Bills a very, very dominant front line.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bills have, like I said, like you said as well, different ways to get after the quarterback, and I think that bodes well for the Bills. Okay. That being said, our favorite portion of the show, score prediction time. Last week, my dad was mad because I didn't say his score prediction. So this time he texted it to me. My dad has Bills 27, Dolphins 24. He has the Bills winning by 3, so I just wanted to put that out there. Obviously, the Bills started at 1-point favorite at the time on Tuesday night. It has shifted to the Bills -3, so the money's moving towards the Bills. And all that fun stuff you can take with that, whatever you want. But let us know in the comment section what you guys got. I was supposed to put out our score prediction tweet on Sunday for the Bills Patriots. Somehow that got lost in the absolute abyss of social media because I don't know what I went. I have no idea what happened to that tweet. I scheduled it Friday night knowing, because I'm driving up to Buffalo, knowing that I'm going to be, I don't have my computer, don't have access to the video, right? Schedule it. Don't know where it is, man. Don't know when I scheduled it
maybe
for.
2024, maybe December.
Dude, it might come out in
2024.
It might come out in 2026. I swear, man. I don't know. I got to find out if I can go look at past scheduled tweets. I think you can. But I don't know what happened to that. No idea. So that's on me. If you guys were waiting for that tweet, I don't know who's waiting for that tweet. But you know what? It said found it. Yep, you were right. Next year. Stupid idiot. Okay. Messed that one up. December 31st, 2024.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, this week I'm gonna go 30-20. Buffalo Bills win by 10 in Miami and get the 2 seed and secure the AFC East crown for the 4th straight year.
I like it. 30-20. Robbie's coming in 28-12 Bills. Interesting. I hope Robbie's right. 12 is an interesting number to get to. It's just an interesting number to get to. Holman's coming in 29-28 Bills. Jacob is coming in 38-35 Bills. Jacob Smith, another Jacob Smith Sr., Buffalo 40, Miami 31. Score doesn't tell the whole story. I think Buffalo dominates for 3/4 and Miami scores late to make it look close. I like your score, Lance. I was going back and forth with this. So for my Bills versus Dolphins score prediction, I got Bills 28, Miami 24. I think the Bills do enough offensively. And my biggest key to this game, or biggest factor, I think Miami's really banged up, right? Like they're banged up on the outside with Jalen Waddle. They're banged up in the interior of the offensive line. They're also banged up on the edge with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. And they're also banged up in the secondary, Xavier Howard. Like a lot of those key facets that have strengths towards Miami are just really banged up at the moment. I think that really factors the Bills. I think their passing game kind of gets back on track. They're able to run. And I like the Bills 28-24. I think we're going to sweat it out, Lance. I know you have a 10-point win. I think we're going to sweat it out. I think it's one of those type of games.
Yeah, I think that it may be closer than what I think, but again, it doesn't mean that the Bills couldn't it couldn't be 23-20, kind of game, and then the
Yeah.
Bills kind of just seal it late with a touchdown, that kind of thing. So, for me, that was kind of my thought. And I'm just hoping they get back to the 30-point plateau. They did first couple weeks of Joe Brady's tenure, and then they kind of have been, they played the Chiefs, so they're not going to score 30. That's fine with me. Played the Cowboys, did score 30, and then the last couple games here against the Chargers and Patriots just haven't played well enough to score 30. So hopefully, again, they kind of iron those things out and actually have a game here and go more towards what these guys are thinking with the 40s even and going that well. So I definitely looking to be wrong here and having the offense score even more than 30. That'd be great.
Look, I don't care if it's pretty, if it's not pretty, if I'm stressing for 3.5 hours. When it's 11:35 or 11:40, whatever time it is on the East Coast, when that fourth quarter hits 0 and the Bills have more points than Miami, if that's the case, I'll be happy. Right? Like I think it's one of those games where throw out everything, put all your tricks, pull out all the stops for this type of game. And look, we've talked about this. The Bills play down to competition, and it's pretty evident, Lance. Like you play Dallas, you play Kansas City, some really good teams. Kansas City just won the Super Bowl. Dallas has a chance if they win to get the 2 seed. Bills beat Kansas City, smoked Dallas, and then they played down to Chargers and the Patriots, who had nothing to play for. The nature of this team, Miami has everything to play for. Hopefully they don't play down. If they play down, that's good because I think Miami's a very good team. So we'll see what happens. Robbie's asking, he put 12 just because he thinks Miami's banged up. Yeah, Robbie, I think 12's interesting number to put, but I do agree. I think Miami's banged up. That's one of the reasons I think the Bills win, just because Miami's banged up. We've listed on both sides of the ball very, very key players. Black Panthers going 9-6 Bills. Okay.
He already had his. No,
I know. He's messing with me because I just said any way to win, you take it. So he's going with the 9-6. Look, if it's 9-6 and we're talking on Tuesday and we kicked more field goals than Miami,
let's go.
Sure. Why
Just
not?
win, baby.
Will we be confident heading into the playoffs? Probably not, but we're in as a 2 seed. Okay, Lance, this was fun. Probably our biggest show heading into the biggest game you and I've covered so far. Your mom's we thought the same thing. Your mom's coming in 30-19 Bills.
Yep.
Lance, who are we sponsored by? Make sure everyone knows so they can maybe have some fun with the Bills-Dolphins game.
Yeah, check out Underdog Fantasy, man. This week is great. Check out the Pick'em game that they have. Use promo code Blitz in order to when you sign up, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. But definitely check out Underdog Fantasy. It's got great format for playing. Like I said, their Pick'em game is just really good. For every sport, and there's just really good stats to pick higher or lower on. I think it's interesting the way they do it. It's unique, and I love to play on there. Had a little bit of a good streak last Thursday and Friday, and then gave the house back some money on Saturday and Sunday. But it was a good weekend overall. So go out there, check out our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Blitz when you sign up, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100.
Make sure you guys follow everything Built in Buffalo. If it's Facebook, if it's YouTube, if it's Twitter, make sure you guys follow all that stuff. If you guys did miss this episode, you can re-watch it. Hit the rewind button on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But if you prefer the audio platform, this comes out tomorrow morning on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you get your audio podcast. Just type in Built in Buffalo Podcast Network. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed this episode, this show, this podcast. Lance and I will be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. recapping.
Check out all the great content on Built in Buffalo for the rest of the week. We got Going Deep podcast tomorrow. Buffalo Basement on Thursday with Witty Not Funny following them, and Bill's Chat on Friday. And then our guys will get you ready on Sunday with the Buffalo Tailgate pregame show. And then you'll have our guy Izzy with the Red Zone Report directly after the game. So just check out all the great content creators we have. BuiltInBuffaloNews.com for the articles throughout the week. I know our guy Danny Adams wrote something good for the good and the bad right after this past game. So go check out that. And then BuiltInBuffaloStore.com, fulfilled by Buffalo Go. Shout out to them, and get some merch if you'd like from the Built in Buffalo folks.
Yeah, make sure you guys do that. And as always, Lance and I will be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. recapping Bills Dolphins. And I always say,
previewing the round one of the playoffs.
Okay, you're confident, but I always say, like, when we're playing next, we'll be recapping or previewing it. So back Tuesday night, Bills Dolphins recap and talking playoff game or not playoff game.
Playoff.
We will see what happens. Give you a fun show on Tuesday as always. Give you a fun, probably really stressful weekend. Make sure you guys watch Saturday. Some very important games: Steelers, Ravens, obviously Colts, Texans, and obviously Titans, Jaguars on Sunday as well. That is going to do it for us. He was Lance, and I was Peter. This was the Buffalo Blitz right here on the Built in Buffalo Network. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.